I have this little hammered ring. It has a cross-beam texture, and I'll get through some of the things. We have all these hammers out here. Each hammer will do a different thing to the metal. They've got flat surfaces, they've got cross surfaces, they've got round surfaces, and each one gives a different impression into the metal, and that impression reflects light, and that creates shine, and each one is different. So they're going to do different things, they're going to look different. You'll see them as we do them, as what texture they create, and at some point we're going to say, all right, here's a blank canvas, what hammer should I hit it with? And we'll play, and we'll see what it looks like. So first, we're going to hand a few pieces around. So I take this piece of metal, and you can try to bend it a little bit, look at it. It's a piece of silver. I'm going to take this hammer, and I'm going to imprint a texture on it. For the magic of TV. Look, I've done it. So this is take that piece and now bend it a little bit. So that is an annealed piece of silver. So I've hammered the texture into it, and hammering is going to crush the crystal structure of the silver, and that's going to make it even harder than the piece that is wandering around. That hammering, that crushes the crystals together, making it harder. Now I can't bend it around very easily. It becomes brittle. It's hard but brittle, so it might break if I bend it around.
Yeah.
I anneal it with the torch. We're going to do that a little bit later. And that annealing expands those crystals again, giving it room so I can bend it around and make a ring out of it. So we're going to do a little bit of what I've just said. So here's that straight piece that we had with no texture on it. I'm going to take my lower seat here. And this was an old rusty piece of iron that somebody had turned into an anvil, and it's kind of awesome. It's the best anvil I've found, at least for me. Yeah, so I'm just going to do a texture on it. This is a cross-beam hammer. I've polished the tip on it. You can buy these hammers for really expensive, or you can get little $20 ones and polish them yourselves. So I'm just going to do a little hammering. It's going to be noisy. All right, now it has a hammer texture on it. I'm going to use this thing, it's called a dead blow hammer. There's some, I'll actually pass that around, it's kind of fun. There's some sand in it, so when it hits, it makes a nice solid thump, and I'm just straightening out the wire. All right, so that stiff piece of wire just got a whole lot stiffer, but it has a nice shiny surface on it, and that's because the steel on the hammer, and I'll pass that around too, is nice and polished.
And that, yeah, so if it wasn't polished?
It would leave like a matte finish.
Okay.
So that's going to save me a lot of work when I go to finish the ring. Polishing it is going to be a breeze because the hammer has already made a polished surface. So I have these nifty-difty little pliers. They're a half round on one side, a nylon jaw on the other. The nylon jaw is going to prevent any marring to that hammered surface that I've just put on. And I'm just going to use this to reform the circle a little bit and squeeze those two ends so they're really nice and tight, butted up against each other. Argentium, one of the best things about argentium is you don't have to use any solder. So I'm not going to actually take anything and add it to the ring to fill the solder joint. The joint is just going to fuse itself. Yeah. So I'm going to take my gnarly little paintbrush over here, and I have my little mighty flux, and I'm just going to put a little bit of flux right on the surface of the ring. This is another really cool thing about argentium silver, is you don't have to flux the whole thing. If it was sterling silver, I would need to flux the whole piece to prevent fire scale from getting to my metal when I'm torching it. And fire scale's a horrible thing that jewelers have to deal with. It becomes a dark stain on the inside of your jewelry. With argentium, it eliminates that. All right, so I've put my flux just on that joint. I have my little charcoal block. And now we see some light. All right, this is a propane tank. Ooh. Much better, much better. This is a propane tank. It's much better, cleaner than acetylene. This has a little control knob here which opens up little air holes on the side, which allows the propane comes through, it drags oxygen through. So now this is a perfect mix of propane and oxygen, making a perfect flame for doing this work. And I'm just going to heat around it. And you can see that orange glow is actually the flux kind of burning, and everything about what the flux is doing is telling me things about how hot the metal is getting. I'm just going to keep rolling it around, rolling around. So right now it's annealed, but I'm going to go farther than that. I'm going to go all the way to where I see just a hint of liquidness on the outside, and that's going to tell me it's fused. We're almost there, almost there. There's that little like watery texture to it, and there, we're done. A couple of these, pass that around. So I have taken the liberty of cleaning up the solder joint, or the fuse joint already, on the inside of these bands, but I haven't cleaned up the outside yet. So I'm going to do the same thing to this ring. There we go. Can just sit in there for a little bit. So first I'm just going to round it out. Okay. And now with the same texture, same hammer, I'm going to hammer right on over that joint, just smoothing it right in. When I'm done with it, hopefully we won't even be able to tell where the joint is. Gets noisy again. That's about it. I like to blend out that hammering now, so I'm just going to give it a quick little texture all the way around the hammer joint, or hammered ring. Not really necessary, but it just sort of blends it nicely, and I like it. Just holding the hammer at the same angle the whole time, that gives me consistency. Cool. Still see a little bit of the joint. Yeah. And now I'm just going to hammer it with the steel hammer just a little bit, force it down a little bit. And then for the edge, I like to give it a little bit of a hammer texture. Just a really, really light. Flip it over. Brought the hallmark. And I'm going to give it a little hallmark.
Ah.
You do what?
Hallmark.
Oh.
Now it's made my bee. There you go.
See that